On screen, the Wild West was all bravado, swagger, six-shooters, and square-jawed heroes riding in to save the day. But behind the Stetsons and Spurs, some of Hollywood's toughest cowboys were hiding truths that could have ended careers faster than a fired round. Studios buried secrets, staged marriages, and leaned on threats to keep their leading men appearing straight. What if I told you some of the most iconic Western stars spent years living double lives? Number 1. Ramon Novarro. Ramon Novarro rose onto the silent screen as the rugged star of Ben-Hur in 1925, full of strength and motion as he drove chariots while audiences swooned across the globe. MGM promoted him as Hollywood's answer to Rudolph Valentino, wrapped in exotic Latin masculinity and romantic intensity. Novarro never married, so the studio's fixers worked constantly, planting fake love stories, feeding gossip columnists, and pushing any rumors back into the shadows. In private, he was far less concealed among trusted friends, hosting lavish gatherings at his Laurel Canyon home where Hollywood's closeted gay elite could finally relax. He had relationships with men throughout his career, including a long romance with journalist Herbert Howe. When talkies arrived, his strong accent limited his roles, and by the 1930s his stardom faded into smaller parts, never fully regaining that silent-era magic. Then in 1968, two male hustlers killed Novarro in his home during a robbery gone wrong, and ending both brutal and lonely. The tabloids turned his death into spectacle, stripping away dignity, even as his early work remained a landmark in cinema history for generations that followed. Number 2. George Maharis. George Maharis surged to fame on Route 66, the iconic road series that made his brooding intensity and chiseled looks a 1960s obsession. Viewers loved the restless energy he carried from scene to scene, as if he belonged on the highway even when the script tried to hold him back. He carried that fame into Western roles, bringing a method-acting edge and raw charisma that gave the genre extra bite. At the height of his popularity, scandal hit hard. Police arrested Maharis twice for lewd conduct with men, first in 1967 and again in 1974, and the headlines destroyed his leading man image almost overnight. Hollywood's machinery turned cold within days, contracts canceled, calls ignored, and directors refusing to hire him out of fear the controversy would damage their projects. Maharis never publicly came out. He remained mostly silent as the arrests became industry gossip and tabloid fuel that followed him for years. His momentum never returned, and he was pushed into smaller roles and television appearances that barely used his ability. In an era when even whispers of homosexuality could end everything, the stigma proved nearly impossible to escape. Friends spoke up about his professionalism and kindness, saying it was painful to watch talent wasted by prejudice and legal pressure. He eventually stepped away, living quietly and avoiding interviews that might bring those scandals back into the spotlight. When interest in his work returned years later, it came with recognition of what had been lost. Audiences never saw the star he could have become. Number 3. Richard Cromwell. He found early success in sound-era films, including Western-style adventures, but by the late 1930s his career had already begun to slow. His softer screen presence never fully matched Hollywood's preferred image of rugged masculinity. His most surprising moment came in 1945 when he married actress Angela Lansbury, a pairing that puzzled many at the time. The marriage lasted less than a year and was later described as a lavender marriage, arranged to protect both careers. Cromwell never publicly challenged the narrative. Instead, he stepped away from acting and built a quieter life as an artist, focusing on pottery and creative work outside of Hollywood's expectations. Friends later described him as gentle and deeply creative, someone who found peace after leaving the pressures of the film industry behind. His acting career faded into a footnote, overshadowed by larger Hollywood legacies. Number 4. Guy Madison. A small role in Since You Went Away helped launch him, and his all-American look soon earned him the lead in The Adventures of Wild Bill Hickok. The series dominated 1950s television, turning Madison into a household name with his square jaw and steady, earnest delivery. For a time, that single role defined him everywhere he went, locking him into the image of the ideal Western hero. He represented wholesome cowboy values, the clean-cut figure parents wanted their children to admire. In 1949, he married actress Gail Russell. and fan magazines framed it as a perfect Hollywood match. But the marriage fell apart within 2 years, surrounded by quiet speculation about Madison's personal life. Within Hollywood, close associates quietly spoke about relationships with men, including a long-rumored connection with director George Cukor, known for hosting gatherings of gay actors and artists. Madison never confirmed any of it. Studio publicity departments carefully protected his image with staged photo opportunities and controlled, wholesome interviews. His run as Wild Bill Hickok passed the 100 episode mark, securing his place in television Western history. As the genre declined in the 1960s, Madison's career began to fade. He eventually moved to Europe, working in Italian Westerns and living with a bit more freedom away from Hollywood's constant scrutiny. Number 5. Tab Hunter. Tab Hunter. In the 1950s, he was Hollywood's golden boy, starring in westerns like The Burning Hills and Gunman's Walk, while Warner Brothers promoted him as every girl's perfect boyfriend. With boyish charm and all-American appeal, he became the face of clean-cut masculinity that audiences adored. To maintain that image, studios arranged fake romances with actresses such as Natalie Wood, carefully staging public dates and photo shoots designed to silence any rumors. Behind the scenes, however, Hunter lived a very different life. In reality, he was gay and spent years in a long-term relationship with figure skater Ronnie Robertson, living together while the press was fed carefully crafted cover stories. In 1955, Confidential magazine prepared to expose him, and the threat nearly ended his career. Warner Brothers stepped in behind the scenes, redirecting attention toward other scandals to protect Hunter's image. The experience left him shaken, and from that point on, every public appearance felt like a risk. He became even more cautious, while continuing to live privately on his own terms. Number 6. Tyrone Power. Tyrone Power. He was one of 20th Century Fox's biggest stars, known for his striking looks and ability to move effortlessly between genres, including westerns and historical epics. Films like The Mark of Zorro and Jesse James cemented his image as a heroic leading man. He married, had children, and maintained a public life that appeared completely traditional. But privately, Power had relationships with men as well, carefully hidden within Hollywood's discreet social circles. Studios worked aggressively to manage any risks, controlling narratives, influencing press coverage, and keeping potential scandals buried. His performances often carried a subtle vulnerability that hinted at the pressure he lived under. In 1958, he died suddenly of a heart attack while filming in Spain at just 44 years old. Many of his secrets went with him, leaving behind a legacy shaped as much by silence as by stardom. Number 7. Forrest Tucker. He appeared in more than 100 films, and later found new success on the hit series F Troop, showing strong comedic timing alongside his tough guy roles. Standing around 6'5" with a commanding voice, he projected authority that fit perfectly within Western and military characters. Publicly, Tucker leaned heavily into a hypermasculine image, with multiple marriages, publicized relationships, and a reputation as a ladies' man that studios were eager to promote. It became part of his identity in Hollywood. Behind that image, however, were private encounters with men, hidden carefully by studio fixers who worked quickly to silence any potential exposure. Maintaining that double life required constant control and careful damage management. Those close to him described a man divided, projecting confidence in public while dealing with pressure in private. He never directly addressed the rumors, instead reinforcing his public persona even more strongly. When he died in 1986, much of that hidden life remained unspoken. Number 8. Anthony Perkins. Anthony Perkins is best remembered as Norman Bates in Psycho, but early in his career he also appeared in several westerns, including The Tin Star and Friendly Persuasion. His lean intensity brought an unusual depth to frontier roles, adding a nervous edge that made even simple characters feel layered and unpredictable. In 1973, he married photographer Barry Berenson, and they had 2 sons, presenting the traditional family image Hollywood preferred. Yet Perkins struggled with his sexuality throughout his life, forming relationships with men, including dancer Grover Dale and actor Tab Hunter. Under pressure from studios and a society that treated homosexuality as a career-ending secret, Perkins underwent conversion therapy more than once, desperately trying to change himself. That internal conflict carried into his performances, giving his characters a haunted vulnerability. In 1992, Perkins died from AIDS-related complications, a tragedy made heavier by how carefully he kept the diagnosis hidden, even from those close to him, until near the end. Number 9. Randolph Scott. Randolph Scott came to define the stoic cowboy, starring in westerns from the 1930s through the 1960s, and turning quiet restraint into a symbol of frontier justice. Soft-spoken, steady, and effortlessly masculine, he made every dusty showdown feel like a moral test. Even when the stories were simple, his calm authority sold the entire Western myth. For years, Scott lived with fellow actor Cary Grant in a Santa Monica beach house, an arrangement insiders treated as one of Hollywood's worst-kept secrets. The two men shared expenses, vacations, and a quiet domestic routine that raised eyebrows across the industry. Publicity teams worked hard to present it as nothing more than a bachelor setup, a harmless arrangement between two stars. Scott eventually married twice, but both relationships often appeared more strategic than romantic, and he kept his private life tightly guarded in interviews. Biographers still debate the nature of his bond with Grant, whether it was romance, deep companionship, or simply two men navigating studio pressure in their own way. Whatever the truth, Scott's Western image never cracked, and audiences believed every role he played. He retired wealthy in 1962, becoming one of Hollywood's richest actors through smart investments in oil and real estate. His legacy as the classic cowboy endures, even as questions about his private life still spark discussion today. The Wild West Hollywood presented was never as simple as it seemed. These men embodied strength and masculinity on screen while hiding truths that could have ended everything. Some found moments of peace, others faced tragedy, but all lived within a system that demanded silence. The question remains, if they had been free to live openly, how different would their stories have been?